Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Iris Freelander, and today we're going to talk to you about the union of spirit and body. And in New Thought metaphysical philosophy, we talk a great deal about both spirit and about the connection of spirit, mind, and body. And today we're going to talk for a few minutes about spirit and a body connection. And there certainly is that strong connection between our spiritual sense and our physical sense.
Yes, there is. And a lot of people think that it's totally separate, and they live their lives in that fashion, like the spiritual aspect of life is separate from the workaday world. And it isn't. It's all synonymous, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that connection that of the two or the three, and we add often mind to that, but today we're going to really be discussing spirit and body connection. Is such a dynamic and integral part of our daily lives. We have the ability always, and we've talked a lot in this program about meditation, about moving into a different, a quieted state of consciousness. And I think everyone needs to or wants to quiet their senses in today's busy world. And as we're able to draw upon that spiritual realm within us, we're able to then relax the body more fully and completely, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And but as we live a spiritual life, a spiritually oriented life, then we're able to relax the body more fully, and we're able to forget the body. And we study ourselves and do that which we wish to change, and then we can forget ourselves if we're living in a spiritual aspect of being. And just today, I was talking, it's coincidence, I was talking today with a businessman who is in a service of helping people with their, in an aspect of their own health. And he said, for the last 5 years, I've not been able to be as diligent with my spiritual work as I have been in the work that I do. I just seem to have been devoting all my time in the last 5 years to work. And he said that as if he was sorry that he was neglecting his spiritual life. And at the time, I didn't think very strongly about that. We just continued with our conversation. But afterward, I was thinking, well, he's doing such a wonderful help for people to help with their health that it's actually synonymous, and it's like a tapestry. And so I sat down and wrote him a note and told him that, because he seemed a bit troubled because he was not attending to the spiritual life. Well, to me, and I think you would agree, that it's all synonymous, and when he's working so diligently to help people help themselves, then it's all the same thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. And that word that you just used, tapestry, it is a tapestry that's woven together. Mm-hmm. And often we think of the two as being totally separate. And also, I think we think often of the spiritual nature as having to do with a religious nature. And of course, the religious dynamic of our life is an important part. But what we're talking about, especially in the context of the discussion today, is that spiritual connection that transcends even the religious difference.
Yes, and I would like our listeners to just give thought to their own lives and whatever they're doing in a physical aspect of being, whatever they're doing, if they're doing it with integrity and diligence and to help others, then it's just as holy and spiritual as their prayers, because it all goes together, it all merges, and it totally is synonymous. And so very often we punish ourselves mentally by saying we should do this and we should do that. Well, actually, we should do what comes to mind and to hand. And if it helps other people in any way, then, or helps ourselves, then it couldn't be more spiritually oriented.
Mm-hmm. The physical aspect of health is something that, especially in New Thought and metaphysics, we spend a fair amount of time talking about. And the aspect of healthy living, healthy thinking, healthy feeling, healthy emotions, health at all of its levels. And this issue of wholeness of the physical being is a very strong part of our teaching, and also a strong part of the counseling work that you and I are involved in as well.
Yes, it is. And if we can help people to see that mind, body, and spirit, all the physical, the physical, the etheric, the astral, the mental, the soul, the Adonai, the monad, all the seven bodies interpenetrate. We have seven bodies. They interpenetrate, and they all act as one. So we think with our conscious mind about what's happening around us at the moment, but then with our subconscious, we remember other aspects of spirituality, and then we merge those and becomes our supra consciousness. We're working from the supra consciousness, and then we're connected with Creator God more fully in a conscious way, so that we know that we're always connected with Creator God, but we know that we are, and we can function from all aspects of being when we consciously realize that we are.
And when we become aware of that connection, then as we work through the process of helping different individuals with that understanding and the understanding and application of that teaching, it manifests in the physical.
Yes.
And so much of our work is spent in counseling and in working with individuals who are having physical crisis and illnesses and stress related and relationship problems and all of the other kinds of things that people come to counselors for and therapists for. But that dimension comes forth in the form of the physical body, and that connection can't be minimized too much. I think, we think, again, going back to just the beginning of the program when you pointed out so beautifully that the two are connected as a tapestry. And so often when we see physical manifestations or we see psychological manifestations, they are an outpicturing of something that is far deeper, but when far deeper than simply what we see on the surface. But when we see that peace and tranquility and unity of consciousness and understanding of these aspects of our being, then a certain radiance comes about. And actually that plays into the healing process as well. Just this week we had someone, Helen, I'll just say Helen because you know her name and she wouldn't mind us saying it, but who had a surgery. And the importance of having the right mental attitude, the right spiritual attitude, and the right physical preparation all coming together in a wonderful and magnificent way so that the outcome is for the highest and the best of that individual. And it shows, and we see it over and over again in people that we work with, especially as we see people who age and age well. And one of the things that happens in our work, so often people say, well, people age so well within new thought. And I think that's true because of this connection and this understanding.
It is true. It's years and years ago when I first attended the first metaphysical church that I found to attend. I was surprised. There was people there 95 years old. There was one lady 100 years old. She lived to be 105. And that was my first introduction to when people in that field who are thinking the way we think, well, they do live longer and they look young, more youthful, and it shows in every way. And which is just simple, when we're fighting nature, fighting for what we believe in, then it ages us. But when we relax and just know that what we're saying and doing is connected with Creator God, whether or not it's work, play, or whatever aspect of life it is, then we don't feel concerned about it. And I see that, and we've discussed it before, of people who are dying, and if they accept that, yes, it's my time to go, and I'm ready to go, then just as one lady said to me, I don't want to die, but I've outgrown this old body of mine, and I'm ready to go. And she looked so lovely. The mortician, when he came to collect her body, said how beautiful, exclaimed how beautiful she was. And she was. And she had been quite ill with a heart condition and cancer for 4 years, but yet she had an unearthly, lovely glow. And that happens whether we're dying or whether we're living or whatever we're doing. It shows in our faces, it shows in our lives. When we're struggling and fighting against life, then it shows on our faces and our countenance. And when we're accepting that, yes, this is life, then we can get on with our lives in a more full and wonderful way.
Right. And in this whole process, we're not talking about the avoidance of problems.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the avoidance of anything. We're talking about the fact that circumstances and situations are going to come into all of our life experiences. And so often people will say to us, oh, well, you don't understand because you don't have the same problems. And you and I know we have the same problems as anyone else. And yet it is because of this understanding and these underlying laws and the practice of this technique that we're able to deal with circumstances and situations. And whether it's a life-threatening circumstance, whether it's pain, and we've spent some time on this program talking about the dealing with physical pain, and we know that we can diminish the impact of physical pain through the connection of the spiritual and mental dimension through vision, revisioning, through relaxation, through counseling, and through a variety of different clinical techniques, but also through the use of a variety of spiritual techniques that allow people to lessen the impact of that suffering. And again, it's not only the physical suffering that people go through of the physical body, but the emotional suffering as well. And that's a great part of what our work is about.
Yes, and a great part of that is the fear that some people feel when they're going to be ill or are ill, and they fear something worse. And so as they fear, I was a hospice volunteer for 10 years, and I made ward rounds for a couple of years, and your work is in the hospitals, and so we both know from experience that when people are fearful, then it shows in their faces, in their countenance, but it also, more than that, creates pain. And so they create the pain themselves and hold on to it. But if they are relaxed and don't exercise fear, then the pain is much diminished. And I've seen it happen all the time. And so I've taught a lot of people to the deep breathing process and just attuning themselves to Creator God. And that makes a big difference, doesn't it?
That yes, deep breathing is a simple aspect, a very simple aspect, and of course, deep breathing is something that has so many physical benefits, and we minimize it. Simple exercise has simple spiritual exercises, simple physical exercises, and all of those things. It's not a complex process. So often people believe that what we're talking about is so complex and hard to do, or difficult, but it's not in truth difficult, is it?
No, it isn't. And it all depends on our own feeling toward in a spiritual aspect of being, not religion, but spiritual.
Yes, absolutely. And we'd like to pause at this point in the program and share with you some information.
Mike and Iris invite you to be with them every Sunday morning at the magnificent and historic Scottish Rite Cathedral, located at 855 Elm Avenue in Long Beach. Our worship service and Sunday school begin at 11 a.m. Angelus Unity Cathedral Church at the Scottish Rite Cathedral meets in the only true cathedral church located in the city of Long Beach. This magnificent grand building is a true architectural jewel. The service begins at 11 a.m. and there is Sunday school for the children. There is always plenty of free parking in the cathedral lot. Mike and Iris look forward to meeting you and your family this Sunday. People of all faiths are always welcome. We will be saving you a seat this Sunday at Angelus Unity Cathedral Church at the Scottish Rite Cathedral. You will be warmly welcomed.
This issue of holding on to fears and holding on to judgment, and of course the other aspect that we haven't touched on is having deep and hurtful regrets about life, causes us untold physical pain, doesn't it?
Yes, it's unfortunate, and most of us can't avoid that to some extent because we always look back and see what we could have done, what we might have done differently. And particularly if we have family that we've been involved with, or in our work, if we've been responsible for others. When we've been responsible for other people, then we can see, but that's life, and we grow. And so if we've done our best, then we don't need to hit ourselves over the head. And I remember once asking my oldest son to forgive me for having not been there for him at a crisis time in his life. And he said, "You did the best you could." And he said that with such conviction that I believed it. Because, and we all, most of us do the best we can. But then later, when we look back, if we can learn a lesson from it, it's okay to look back and review. But to blame ourselves or to blame others, then that's not okay. It's not appropriate, and it doesn't solve any problem. It doesn't serve any purpose. But what does serve a purpose is to see life in its continuity, and then we act accordingly, and that makes a difference.
Absolutely. This aspect of letting go of blame, and also the issue that we have spoken of in the past, and this is a good time to talk about it in this spirit and body connection, is to be in the present moment. Mm-hmm. To be where we are. And from a therapeutic and clinical standpoint, and from a spiritual standpoint as well, we know that we have to accept the fact, or we don't have to, but we certainly encourage people to accept the fact that we're where we are, and at any given time in our lives, and that's all right. And what we talk about and the ideas and concepts that we share have to do with being in the present moment, looking, as you said so well, at our lives in both retrospection and introspection, but most importantly, being in the moment, and then allowing ourselves to feel the way that we feel, and then identifying those negative feelings, such as blame and judgment and regrets and the rest, that we need to let go of, and then move on, but to remain in the present moment, in the moment, because where we are is such a valuable time. And so often we talk to people at the end of life, or we talk to people who feel that they've wasted so much time. And it is a tremendous loss, a sense of loss and a sense of regret that is created because of that reality that sets so deeply within them. And so wherever we are, it doesn't matter whether it's in the beginning of life, in the middle of life, or the end of life. It's never too late to change the way that we think, and to be in the present moment, and to live in the present moment, and to embrace the experience of the present moment, and then take a real clear and genuine look. And sometimes we need help to do that. Sometimes we need professional help to do that. Sometimes we need a clergyman or clergy person, or a therapist, or other professional. Sometimes we need a good friend. Sometimes we need just a moment of quiet reflection to look at that experience, and then determine whether we're where we want to be, but be there in that present moment.
And accept where we are as being where we are supposed to be, and where we belong, and where we've grown to. And look, when life is viewed from the concept of reincarnation, it makes all that much easier. And I don't know how, it must be really hard to not accept what happens in life without that concept, because we've all been every race, every creed, everything. We've experienced all the various aspects of life throughout our various incarnations. And so when we look at life in that way, it makes the problems of life easier to understand, at least it does for me, because I realize that we've grown to this point in time. And this is why we can never judge another person. We can never second guess what's going on in someone's life. Why is this happening? And I know you say that so often. We don't need to ask why. We don't know why. We just know to accept what is and go on from there. And so, but it's easier to do that when we realize that we've had many lives and we've been many things and we've been many, exhibited many aspects of being. And I think that even if we don't believe in reincarnation, if we look at it in that way, it makes life easier to understand, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the issue is that there be an understanding or realization that there is a spiritual dimension, whatever that is, and that whatever one's spiritual belief about life and the continuity thereof is valid and is worthy of respect and dignity. And so our concept and yours and mine and someone else's may be totally different, but the fact is that we are spiritual beings as much as we are physical beings, and it kind of goes to the heart of that talk that you've heard me give so often, where people, the excuse for almost everything is, well, I'm only human, I'm only human. And we are not only human. That's to say that we're only physical, we're only physical, we're only physical. And if that's the case, then we are putting aside all of the belief in anything that is spiritual or anything that transcends the physical realm. And so it is important, I think, for us to grasp hold and to hold firm to whatever it is that we believe about the fact that there is a spiritual reality and a spiritual undergirding, and that we are far more than this physical being. But then this physical being and this physical experience can be a power, it can be and should be a powerful one, and it should be a health-filled and a joy-filled one. And so if we can keep our physical bodies and our spiritual bodies aligned in a positive and affirmative way, then we are able to experience life and have joy and abundance and access to all of the intelligence and the guidance and direction that we need. And it's also important, too, that even people that don't have any kind of religious belief system still often have a spiritual belief system. And I think that's profoundly important.
Not only is it important, but it is essential. And if we negate the spiritual aspect of being and put the physical as being more important, then we're just deleting from our lives some of the best and brightest and most wonderful aspect of being, because when we realize that we're spiritual beings and we have been for all eternity and will be for all eternity, but each time we come through this life we have a specific body, and then when we drop it and then we go into the inner and then come back again and have another body, well, that's just so temporary when you look at it from the aspect of all eternity. So and when we look at life in that way, when I look at life in that way, it makes the problems easier to bear. It makes it easier to see people who have deep, deep problems, because I know that they're so temporary. And I think our hearts would break if this was the only time that some people have to live, because they come through to work through such serious problems that they seem handicapped, or they seem as if life isn't fair. But life is always fair. It's just that we each have different problems at different times.
Mm-hmm. And each of those problems strengthen us and bring us opportunities.
And that's why we're here, isn't it? So that's why we're here, to work through those problems and to work through our character development, to work our way back to God more fully as manifested spirit. And so when we look at mind, body, and spirit in that way, then life is more joyous and more easy to bear, and we can forgive others and not blame them, and have compassion for people who are going through problem times instead of being critical.
And we can forgive ourselves.
Yes.
And the forgiveness of self is tremendously important, because as we are able to forgive ourselves for our own failings and shortcomings, and every one of us has shortcomings, even me,
Totally.
even mine. And so as we're able to understand that and understand that reality, then we're able to draw upon this limitless resource that we have. And in the last couple of minutes that we have, I think we'd like to touch on just how important it is to come to that point of centering. And for a lot of people, some of the words and concepts and ideas that we share are somewhat different and somewhat foreign and somewhat hard to understand, because in some cases people have not heard them before, especially people from very traditional backgrounds. But the use of meditation, the use of imagery and deep breathing, the connection of the spiritual reality and essence of our being with our physical being, and that oneness of that is so very important. So meditation is a very useful tool, isn't it?
Well, to me, it's very essential. And furthermore, when we live in that fashion, we're adding positively to the global brain, to the mass consciousness. And that's why I think that's why life is better all the time. And civilization progresses upward because more and more people live in that way and think in that way. Because as we think positive thoughts, we're adding in a positive way to the mass consciousness. And it's just like when we have rioting and fighting, it negates and draws down the mass consciousness, and that's why then it becomes worse and worse and worse with each of those incidents. But when each person, each thought we think, each act we do, makes a difference in the mass consciousness. It makes a difference in how the evolutionary system of the world grows.
And we are growing constantly, always and everywhere, and that's a wonderful place to end. And we hope that you have enjoyed the information we've shared with you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.